Hey everyone, and welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today we'll be tackling machine learning, and specifically supervised and unsupervised learning.
Sounds fun.
You know I'm excited about this one. You sent over this 9 minutes podcast episode, and it seems like you want to know how all this AI stuff works, but maybe without all the crazy jargon.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's jump right in. What is machine learning, and how does it actually work?
So machine learning, or ML for short, basically lets computers learn and make decisions, but without having to program like every single step.
Okay, interesting.
It's all about recognizing those patterns in data. Then they can use those patterns to make predictions or even take action.
So it's kind of like teaching a kid the difference between, say, cats and dogs, right?
Exactly.
You show them pictures labeled cat, dog, and eventually they figure out what makes a cat a cat.
You got it. That's the core idea behind supervised learning. Think of it like a classroom.
Okay.
With a teacher using labeled examples to teach. The computer, or machine in this case, acts like the student learning from those labeled examples.
So the examples have to be labeled for the computer to learn from them.
Right. Take a spam filter, for example. You feed the machine a bunch of emails that are clearly marked as spam or not spam.
Okay, I'm starting to see how my spam filter actually works.
Exactly. This labeled data trains the machine, so then it can predict whether future emails are likely spam.
That's so cool. So supervised learning, is it used in other areas too?
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. It helps banks spot those suspicious transactions to prevent fraud.
Wow.
It's even transforming healthcare. Through medical diagnoses, these algorithms can actually analyze medical images.
Really?
And help doctors make more accurate diagnoses.
That's incredible.
And of course, they're self-driving cars. They rely heavily on supervised learning to navigate those roads, detect obstacles, and make those split-second driving decisions.
That is amazing, but I have to imagine getting all that labeled data like you were talking about. It must be a lot of work, right?
You hit a key point. Supervised learning needs tons of labeled data. It can be really time-consuming and expensive to get all that information and then label it.
That makes sense.
And that's where unsupervised learning comes in.
Okay.
Imagine learning without a teacher, without any labels or instructions. That's unsupervised learning in a nutshell.
Learning without a teacher. But how does a machine actually make sense of the data if there's nothing telling it what it is?
So unsupervised learning is all about finding those hidden patterns and structures within the data itself. Let's think of it like organizing a really messy closet.
Okay, I can relate to that.
You might not have labels for each item, but you can still group similar things together.
Oh, yeah.
Based on what they have in common. Put all your shirts in one pile, pants in another.
Right.
That's similar to how an algorithm might use a technique called clustering to group data points together.
Yeah.
It uses those shared characteristics or features.
So it's like the machine is going through everything and figuring out what goes with what, even though it doesn't have names for those categories.
Exactly.
But without labels, how do we know if those groups even mean anything useful?
You've hit on a big challenge with unsupervised learning. Figuring out if the patterns the machine finds actually make sense to us humans. It's kind of like the machine speaking a different language.
Oh, interesting.
A language of patterns and clusters. And we have to figure out how to translate that into something we understand.
So it's like the machine might group all the blue things together, even if some are shirts and some are toys. It sees that pattern, but it doesn't really get the bigger picture.
Exactly. A great way to put it. The machine looks at similarities like color, shape, or size, but it doesn't necessarily grasp the context or the meaning behind those categories.
So how can we make sure those groupings from unsupervised learning are actually useful, especially when they might not match up with how we see the world?
That's where we need humans to step in, to interpret and make sure things make sense. We need to analyze the results from unsupervised learning and make sure they actually mean something and relate to the problem we're trying to solve.
Right.
Sometimes those groupings might show us something unexpected, help us see things in a new way.
Yeah.
But other times we might need to adjust the algorithms.
I see.
Or even change the data we feed them to get results we can use.
So it's not as simple as just setting it up and letting it run. We have to be really involved in the whole process.
Exactly. It's a team effort. Human intelligence and machine intelligence working together, each playing a key role.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to go back to something you mentioned before. Those recommendation systems.
Oh, yeah.
Like Netflix uses. Those seem like perfect examples of unsupervised learning.
Absolutely. Platforms like Netflix, Amazon, Spotify, they all use it to figure out what to recommend.
Wow.
They look at what you've watched or bought or listened to, and then they group you together with other users who have similar tastes. That's how they come up with those recommendations that seem to know you so well.
So that's how they do it. It's always felt a bit like magic to me. But using all that data about us, that raises some questions about privacy, doesn't it?
That's a really important point. Unsupervised learning is powerful, But it also brings up those questions about our data and how it's being used.
Right.
Companies need to be open about how they are using our data and give us more control over our privacy settings.
Definitely.
And as users, we need to be aware of the data we're creating and make smart choices about what we share.
Okay, so let's take a minute to recap what we've learned about these two types of machine learning.
Okay.
So supervised learning is like having a teacher with clearly labeled data, which makes it great for stuff like spam filtering and maybe even diagnosing diseases.
Exactly.
Unsupervised learning, on the other hand, it's more about exploration and finding patterns, like grouping customers or recommending movies.
You got it. Each approach has its pros and cons. The best one for a specific situation depends on what you're trying to solve. If you have a really specific task and tons of labeled data, supervised learning might be the way to go. But if you have unlabeled data and want to uncover those hidden patterns, then unsupervised learning might be better.
It sounds like it really comes down to using the right tool for the job, understanding the nuances of each approach.
Absolutely. And as machine learning keeps advancing, we're seeing more techniques that combine aspects of both supervised and unsupervised learning to really get the most out of the data.
That's amazing. This field is constantly evolving.
Right.
But with all this talk of computers learning and making decisions, I have to ask, where do we fit in all of this?
Well, that's a big question. But I think it's important to remember that machine learning is a tool.
Okay.
Yeah, a powerful one. But the tool that humans use. We are the ones that guide its development, make sure it's used ethically, and harness its potential to do good. The more we know about how these technologies work, the better we'll be at shaping their future and making sure they benefit humanity.
I like that. So as machine learning becomes more common in our everyday lives, what areas do you think will be impacted the most?
Well, that's a great question. I think it has huge potential in personalized healthcare.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Like imagine treatments that are tailored to you based on your genes, lifestyle, and even environmental factors. Machine learning can help us personalize treatment plans, even predict disease risks, and ultimately empower people to take charge of their own health.
That's incredible. It sounds straight out of science fiction.
It really does. But honestly, with how fast technology is advancing, it might not be that far off. And it's not just healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
I think machine learning has the potential to revolutionize so many fields. Transportation, energy, education, finance.
Yeah, I can see that.
The key is to approach these technologies with curiosity and a sense of responsibility, and a willingness to embrace those new possibilities.
Well said. We've really gone deep today, unpacking the differences between supervised and unsupervised learning, and even touching on some of the ethical implications of all of this.
And we did it without getting lost in all the jargon. So hopefully you now have a better understanding of this amazing technology and how it's changing the world around us.
Before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. If we think about all the data we generate every single day, from browsing online to our fitness trackers to our smart homes, where do you see machine learning making the biggest difference? Making things easier, more efficient, or even helping us discover something new?
Yeah, that's a great question. The possibilities are endless. But if I had to pick one area that really excites me, it would be personalized education.
Personalized education, what do you mean by that?
Imagine if every student could learn at their own pace.
Okay.
In a way that was designed for them, tailored to their individual needs and learning styles.
That would be amazing.
Machine learning could be used to analyze how a student learns, figure out their strengths and weaknesses, and then create a custom learning plan just for them, helping them reach their full potential.
That's a really inspiring thought. And it makes me think about how these machine learning concepts we talked about, they're not just abstract ideas, they actually have the potential to really impact our lives in so many ways.
You got it. The more we understand about these technologies, the better we can use them to shape the future.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to think about all those possibilities. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of machine learning. Until next time, stay curious.
It's amazing to think about how all this connects together, from those basic concepts to the real-world applications.
It is. And before we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
Think about all the data you create every single day, from browsing online to your fitness tracker, even those smart devices in your home.
Yeah, that's a lot of data. It is. So where could supervised or unsupervised learning be used to maybe make things easier or more efficient? Or could it help us discover something totally new about ourselves or the world around us?
That's a great question. It really brings home how these ideas we've been talking about, they're not just some abstract concepts. They're all around us and probably shaping our world in more ways than we realize.
Exactly. And the more we understand these technologies, the better prepared we'll be to navigate this data-driven world.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those possibilities. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of machine learning. Until next time, stay curious.